Welcome to episode 196 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. I just want to remind you that if you like the podcast, I hope that you'll take a moment to leave a comment or rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your ratings and comments do help new people find the show, or even better, if you know somebody you think will like the show, tell them about it. Some of my favorite podcasts became my favorites because somebody I knew told me about them. So if you tell somebody about Stageworthy, let me know about it. You can find Stageworthy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. And if you want to drop me a line, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Phil Rickaby, and my website is philrickaby.com. My guests this week are Eli Pasic, Blair, Haynes, and Emily Dix from the production of Eli's play False Claims, presented at the Alumni Theatre starting August 2nd and running until August 11th in Toronto. I'd like to talk a little bit about False Claims and what it's about. I know it's a farce, but beyond that, I don't know much about it. So, give me like, what's the elevator pitch for False Claims?
Oh my gosh, I practiced this so well. False Claims is about a devious layabout nephew who poses as his late aunt's husband in order to collect her life insurance money. But as always, farcical complications ensue.
Well, that sounds classic.
Yeah.
That sounds like
it is.
Like 1940s like first movie. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So where did the idea for that come from?
This was about 2 years ago. I really wanted to write a farce and had for about 3 weeks read every farce I could read and watch every farce and thought about ideas. And quite frankly, just one morning I woke up and just thought, a nephew poses, as his late aunt's husband and wants to collect her life insurance money. And I also thought of the big twist in the show, I'm not going to tell you. And it was all filmed in place. Everything was done. Of course, everything wasn't done, but the basic structure was done,
We always think when we write something the first time, well, that's it. It's done. Finished.
Yes.
There's nothing more to do.
No.
At that point, when you had got to that point, when you were like, everything's done, how much more was there to do?
Well, I didn't think everything was done. In retrospect, everything was done by then. That was the spine of it. It came out rather quickly, a one-act version. In about a week and a half, I did it. And I started writing it as a short story in prose, outlining he walks here, and I wrote the script in a couple of days. And then I left it for a year and a half, just sat there. And then I read it with my cousin Isaiah last June. And he thought, oh, how swell. Maybe it could be bigger. And I thought, I don't really want to write more, because what writer wants to write? And then last August, we had a table reading of it with Blair and 8 actors, with my cousin reading the lead. And we all kind of thought, gee, this is really short. It only ran for about 38 minutes. And we thought, my God, this is a poem, it's not a play. And then it was between August and March of this year that I did most of the work. It turned into a 2-act, 90-minute farce.
Had the show dates been set at that point?
Well, roughly.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I find a deadline can be helpful as well as terrifying, but a deadline can sort of like light a fire.
Yes. I went into it thinking this is going to fail. I mean, as in me, I'm going to fail at making this a thing. But every day I just wrote another word and a half, and, it kind of came together. We'll find out.
Well, Blair, what drew you to the piece?
Well, I've seen a lot of new work, and I've been sent scripts and done a lot of workshops, and I just considered myself to be incredibly lucky, basically, that, this incredibly talented young writer. I happened to meet him last year at the Fringe when we were doing 6 Stories Told at Night. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if he could write a word. But he was very entertaining to talk to in the bar.
It's because of the bar.
And so when they sent me the script to look at, it was just a sheer delight. I can assure you, you're not presented with many scripts that are like this, so well constructed, so deliciously, improbably, farcical. It's not a style that you see young writers working in very much.
No.
I loved it from the very beginning, and I was laughing out loud when I read it. So, I mean, we sure hope that the audience thinks it's funny as we do, but
the font was funny.
but anyway, that's why I'm just tickled that somehow I'm involved.
When you received that script, was that the 38-minute version? Was that the
It was.
poem? Was that the poem? Yeah.
It was. And of course, farce reads like lightning, right? And it's not that we ask the actors to do that. It just, Eli's written a play that actors are led, they're led to the style so easily. They just have to follow him. And, but it just flew by.
Yeah.
And I remember, afterwards, saying, okay, we should talk a little bit about this. And, but basically I said, what I want you, usually when you get a new play, it's long. It's way too long. It's, a play that has trouble focusing and it dabbles in all the main points, but hasn't quite found its focus yet. And you see stuff that could be reshaped and certainly lots of cuts. There wasn't anything to cut in Eli's play. It was written to the bone. And I said, try writing stuff we can cut.
From a certain point of view, though, did having a script that was so sharp, did that allow you to focus, like to branch out, to know where the points were to branch out a little more? Or was it just like be more verbose?
No,
like write more?
I'm being very flippant about that because I was trying to encourage Eli to just follow his nose, but I think that's not to say there were definite observations that to be made about character development, and how since it was so lean and well constructed, there certainly was quite a bit there that could be developed more in terms of character arc. Why? Farces are all about improbable complications that are deliciously, impossibly desperate plans, and he's really has the mathematics of that really mastered. But you still have to know why people are kind of doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you did most of your work.
Yeah. But in the second act, again, I won't spoil the surprise, but there's a whole 25 pages that was added, But then again, in the beginning, there was a whole 25 pages added.
When it was first read, were you surprised, Eli, how quickly it went by?
Yes. I'm always afraid I'm going to bore people. That's why I go, really to the bone. But I thought, they want more. Okay, well, all right.
What was it like with these actors reading it out loud? Did everybody laugh? Was it like really entertaining for everybody?
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, though, the parts where they didn't laugh where they should have are the parts that needed more development and justification. You know what I mean? So you're like, okay, there's a problem. It's kind of clear.
Now, did you have that thought when people didn't laugh, or did you have to come to that?
Both. I had half the thought when they didn't laugh, and the other half came to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emily, when did you get involved with the show?
20 minutes ago.
I guess it would have been the end of this March. So I've just met them recently. I was doing my own show, The Rear Window, the beginning of March, and Isaiah was an actor in it. And so he was mentioning that he was, already working on trying to get the casting together and everything. And he let me read the script, and I thought it was great. And he asked me to come on doing design stuff because through my own company, I always do period productions. So it seemed like a good fit with that. So yeah, I came on to do design, and then he's not a new producer, but he, I guess, trying to produce something that he's also a lead in was proving to be a little stressful.
That's difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so I kept offering to help out with little things here and there, and eventually he was like, you should probably just be a producer because you've been producing. So.
I mean, it's funny because you always think, if you don't know how much there is to do, right? How much is there? There can't be any difficulty that I would run into producing and acting in this show. Is something that I think. And we're heading up to Fringe as we record this, and that's what a lot of people are now beginning to discover that they can't do. Yeah. It's amazing what you don't know until you plunge your head into a bucket of things that need doing.
Yeah.
But you're in the Alumni Theater, so you're pretty familiar with that space, right?
Yes. The show we did 2 seasons ago, we did Loop, so a farce, actually, with one of the actors too. Kevin Forster is in this, and he was the lead in that.
Nice.
It's kind of funny, some of the similarities in the characters. So I've done a show there set almost in the same period, same style, same actor. So, yeah.
Nice. Eli, did you have a favorite farce before you started writing this?
I really like George Feydeau. He did The Lady from Maxine's and A Flea in Her Ear. All of his farces were, Blair used the word, geometrical and so intricately plotted, and I really liked his work.
Did you? I mean, you said that you wrote it out as a short story first. Was that your way of meticulously plotting it out?
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about lines and dialogue. They inevitably come to you when you don't want them. And it's mostly to worry about entrances and exits, and I know he's here, so he's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it really helped. I'd never done that before, and I thought, okay, we'll do this.
No, but I think there's something about a farce that almost requires that kind of thing.
It's just pure story you're working on.
Yeah.
No dialogue,
You need to know where everybody is so you can set up the comedy later. Otherwise, if you have to work backwards, it just gets kind of messy.
Yes, but then sometimes you do work backwards. Like if I can get him over here, and then this could be a charming moment. And then you do it and it fails, and then you try again.
But I mean, you don't know, right? You don't know until you try it.
No, I still don't know.
I want to, before we talk too much more about false claims, I want to talk to you guys about your theater origin stories, and why theater, what brought you to theater, that sort of thing. So, if you'd like to start, Eli, what do you remember when you first started being interested in theater?
When they took me off Prozac. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I started being interested in the theater many, many years ago. When I was young, I grew up in a neighborhood with all old people, people in their 70s, and this was the 90s, so, they were born in, you do the math.
In London, Ontario.
In London, Ontario.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
And I always did red skeleton sketches for them. I didn't even know what the word "the" meant or "cat," but I was doing red skeleton sketches. And he was him being drunk. I didn't even know what that meant. So that was, I suppose, my first entrance into the theater, in a sense. And then I suppose it wasn't until high school when I saw, the school plays, and I thought, I never wanted to write until after after my first year in college, I went to Berklee School of Music in Boston, and I was aiming to be an orchestrator for the theater. And at the end of that year, I read a particular script, a musical comedy. A funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. And I thought it was another farce.
Yeah.
And I thought, gee, I have to do this. And that's when I started actually, doing theater.
So you went to school without thinking about theater?
No scripts, no entrance, exit lines.
So you were music. So what took you to music?
I think, again, orchestration. I had no idea I wrote songs in high school and lyrics, but for some reason I wanted to be an orchestrator of the music. I like the colors and all that. And I guess writing plays is a sort of orchestration, so I was unconsciously learning how to do that.
Do you have a sense of when you figured out what an orchestrator did?
I'm still trying. The thing is, I emailed him when I was 16, named Larry Blank. And Larry Blank he's a conductor and an orchestrator. And he did The Producers, The Drowsy Chaperone. And I emailed him saying, can you teach me how to orchestrate, mister? And he did for free for 3 years.
Wow.
Thank you, Larry. And I learned more about everything in that time than I ever did. Yet, what ultimately forced me to drop that was I was too slow at sitting there with the notes. And he's like,
okay,
it's insane. But I think that's what he taught me totally informs the theater. Because even then, I was underwriting my orchestrations for fear of overwriting. I'm still doing that with plays.
Do you remember what was the first play that you wrote?
Oh, I think it was a musical. And it was called Away We Go. And it's set in 1930s Hollywood, and it's about this film director who's trying to revive his career. And in order to do that, he goes on location to a South American country. And it's silly and crazy, and he films... it's so bad now. The local Kunkta tribe. It's just... it's kind of it's like King Kong meets 42nd Street.
Okay, okay.
It was kind of like that. And then from there, it just spiraled downwards.
But there must have been something there because you kept writing.
Yeah, I don't know what. Because like I said, mainly it was lyrics I was writing and music. And the style of music is very much in the Cole Porter vein of writing. I suppose here's the other moment. When I was throughout high school, I played in a lot of pit orchestras as a piano player. And I spent a lot of time listening to scenes being played over and over, My Fair Lady. And the particular show that I was on, Anything Goes, was another moment where I thought, I have to write these lyrics. They're so wonderful. I need to try my best to mimic them. And yeah.
When you were listening to those shows over and over, were you picking up on things that you would do differently, or were you just soaking in the dialogue, the language, the cadence?
I think it was all unconscious. I was just sitting there. Half the time I was going, when's this going to be over? And you know what I mean? I loved it, but at the same time I was, just a regular human wanting to get out and scream in the streets, you know. You know, Emily. But, yeah.
Blair, what about you? What's your theater origin story? What brought you into this?
Well, I came from a town called Brantford.
Which is known as a massive theater town.
It's the cultural, the diverse, the blah blah yada yada yada. And yeah, so you've been there. I really had no aspirations or my grandmother. Maybe that's what it is. My grandmother was babysitting me one day, and I don't know why, but she took me to a high school, a production of Julius Caesar. And I thought, all I could think of is, how did those guys ever get enough nerve to wear those skirts? But I suppose for real, it was in high school when I was, I don't know, in grade 12 or something like this. And I sat at the back with my two buddies. And it was a English class. And we thought we were in a lot of trouble. The teacher asked us to stay behind after class. So I said, oh, okay. So we're sitting there, and his name was Mr. Davies. He came down, and he said, so I'm directing a play. And I want you all to audition for it. It was Ionesco's, it was an absurdist one-act play by Ionesco. And so we all just didn't say anything. We just stared at him. And then he left, and I said, well, you guys go? And he says, I guess we have to. So I went, and they didn't show up. My two buddies didn't show up.
Had you done any theater?
No.
Was he just like, listen,
No,
we
nothing.
need boys in this show? Or
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why he asked us. One of my friends had a red afro, and maybe that was why. And the rest of us were just, two of us were, I don't know. I really don't know why. But anyway, it was so hilarious. I ended up getting cast as one of the Bartholomews in this one act play. And then, I had no idea. I mean, I couldn't understand a word of the play. It just sounded like gibberish to me. And I thought, oh, it's funny. They're laughing because they don't understand us either. And then the next play, he told me I was going to be in that one too. And I ended up playing Sir Thomas More in A Man for All Seasons. Talk about, again, not knowing anything. So anyway, it was this wonderful teacher somehow invited me into his world, and I got the idea of it all.
When did you decide that it was going to be a thing that you were going to do?
I didn't know people could do things like that. In Brantford, I didn't know anybody who did any of that stuff, as if it was even a possibility, or how do you? I thought I wanted to be a graphic artist. But again, I thought, how is that possible? Yeah. I have no idea how to do it. So I decided to train as an actor. So that shows you how. I didn't know, but the truthful is that I was easily led. And I had two friends that were really quite serious about training for the theater. And they auditioned for the University of Alberta BFA program, which is a highly reputed acting school. And they only take 12 people every year. So I thought, well, maybe... and I knew one person there who was in my high school. And that was totally it. I thought, well, maybe if he got... Maybe I would. I auditioned for York, and they told me right away that I should consider something else. And then I was so depressed, but I thought, well, should I even bother auditioning for the U of A? And I did, and they told me right away, you're in. So it's such a random thing sometimes.
So you had friends who were very serious about pursuing the theater, and you sort of got pulled along with them?
Yeah, basically. I mean, at that time in my life, I had skipped a grade, so I was always a year dumber than everybody else. And I was sort of looking around for role models, and I didn't really know. I don't think I would have, with those, there were just two fluky things, or I don't think I would have ever been able to find my way into that world, because it was so far removed from what I was, what I was doing in Brantford. But I'm sure glad that it worked out that way, because I ended up in an excellent school, and I worked nonstop, and I was basically able to do whatever I wanted to do. And it was all out west before I returned to Toronto. So anyway, that's my Genesis story, and probably not too. I think this generation with Emily and Eli, they're in Toronto, where there's so many opportunities to make your own work, and there's so much going on that you could literally go out every day of the week and participate in an arts related event. That's a great gift, but it wasn't something that was part of my life in Brantford.
No, but also I think that I mean the self-producing model is pretty recently accepted as a legitimate route.
Yes.
When I was in theater school back in 1990, the whole thing was like, your career is going to be, you're going to audition for the show, you're going to do this show, you're going to email, you're going to send letters to agents and artistic directors to get them to come to see the show so you can audition for another show and then do the same thing. And that's what you're going to do. And maybe if you fail, you can do fringe theater.
Yes.
But now, like, what would our theater landscape be without fringe and other independent works? It's where people make their names.
That's very nicely put. And it is indeed what I find so exciting. But when I graduated and I went right into the workforce in the old model, playing theater all over the place. But I never once conceived of producing. Yeah. I mean, in Edmonton, we had the Edmonton Fringe. So I did do some Edmonton Fringe projects and stuff like that. But that was the extent that you could even conceive of that as a real way that you wanted to work.
Emily, how did you get into the producing side of things?
Well, I guess from when I was very small, I was doing directing and producing without really realizing it. I remember being about 4 years old and writing a little script for my friends to do and then getting really, really upset when they weren't following the stuff we had agreed on and arguing with my best friend who said, it's a play, that means you just play, and me saying, no, you have to follow it and you have to do it this way. So I had already had, long before I had any concept of what a director or producer really was, I was already always the one who would kind of take it upon myself to organize things. That continued through high school. I grew up in Kitchener-Waterloo, so also no theater stuff. But that kind of worked to my advantage because in high school, while we didn't have a real drama program or any support, there was also no one to tell me I couldn't do something. So I was sort of given the reins and I got to just do what I wanted, which was maybe good. Then I came to Toronto in 2008 and I went to U of T and studied English, and I've got a drama minor, but it wasn't like acting. It's, studying old plays. And so I got involved with the different college theater groups there and was more interested in directing than producing, but very quickly got very frustrated with working with not very good producers. Because it was just, and maybe this wouldn't have happened if I was in a drama program, but doing stuff that had people who were interested in drama but didn't think that was going to be their career, they of course put their jobs or school ahead of what they were doing, which I wasn't doing. So when I would drop everything for 3 weeks so that I could be up till 2 a.m. sewing costumes and then get up to do rehearsals and then, and I couldn't get my producer to like book the space for us or something because she had to study for an exam. It was infuriating. And then basically the thing that was sort of the turning point was I did a production of Hairspray, which was hectic because we had about a month and a half to put it together. And being a school production, we had to basically take every first year student from that college who applied. So I had a cast of 56. My stage manager never came to a rehearsal. I did all of the costumes, some of the set design, and then was directing it.
I'm sorry, Emily, did you say you had a cast of 56?
Yes.
Oh.
And but the most stressful part is I have very limited musical ability. So I did have a music director who was great, but he couldn't commit to much because he actually had a career doing music stuff. So sometimes we would get there and he wouldn't be there and I would just be plunking out the melody with my right hand trying to get, I have no music training. So that was stressful. But in the end, for our little 4-show run, it went well and we sold out and everyone seemed to like it. And then I realized that the producers hadn't bothered to get any of the half a dozen campus newspapers to come out. I didn't get a thank you for anything. And the real killer was I'd taken 2 weeks off of work and school to work on this, and they made money. And it's like, oh, and I don't get any of that. So it's like, well, okay, then I can do this if I actually give myself the time to do it. So I started my company, Bygone Theater, right around then, I guess. I think Hairspray was in 2011, and Bygone started in October of 2012. And yeah, so I've just kept doing it since then. And having started that, it's gotten me some jobs. I worked with Theatre 20 as a producer, and I worked at Tarragon as an assistant producer for a year, and I've done some freelance stuff here and there, and I've started to actually enjoy it instead of doing it just out of spite and desperation.
Now, how long did it take for you to get from doing it out of spite and desperation to enjoying it?
She's still transitioning.
It depends what you're doing, I guess. And who you're working with. The first one that Bygone did was kind of different, and it was a co-production technically, and so the other people that I was working with, it was just it can be tricky to do co-pros. But after that, I guess it was all right. The only thing that sort of stops me from liking it more is that you can be happy with your artistic product, and like with our last show, and people were saying, oh, how do you think it went? And it's like, well, as the director, I think it went great. As the producer, and knowing how much money we put in and how much the ticket sales were. So I've never gotten to do a show and just felt good about it after, because you're just too aware of all of the different parts, especially the money, which just comes out of my pocket, my boyfriend's pocket. So yeah. No,
that's definitely one of the hard parts. I mean, aside from money, for me, what I think in a lot of people who start producing, it's publicity that becomes the thing that people end up being most uncomfortable with. Some people are like, I don't have a problem with, using Excel and creating a budget, whatever, all of that stuff. But talking, like getting the media to come out, I don't know how to do that because people have difficulty talking about their own work.
Yeah. Well, it's also difficult getting anyone to listen. You know, there are some, I guess I won't name names because I like to keep everyone coming out, but there are like sites that do reviews that you can get someone out from, but you also know there's a good chance it'll be a person that doesn't know how to write and doesn't know theater. So do you invite them to make sure you've got a review, or do you say, I don't even want to deal with that? Yeah. Bygone has done 11 main stage shows and probably close to 20 little one night things. And we've only twice managed to get Now to come out. And there were years in between doing it. And it took a lot of pestering, and you can't get a response from anything like the Star or the Globe and Mail. No. And that's always my first question when I see an indie group that's gotten a review from them is, what did you do? Yeah. So. I had some friends, they did indie work. They got the Star to come out, but somebody knew the reviewer and begged basically. And that seems to be for indie one of the ways to do it. It can be very difficult. Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. There's one reviewer at a major paper that I know from a different article thing. And so he gives me the courtesy of saying he's sorry, but he can't come. But that's, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. And also it's hard to get noticed because, Blair, you said there's so much going on. That also works against you getting noticed sometimes. There's so much going on that it can be hard to get noticed. Oh yeah. Eli, speaking of getting noticed, you've gotten this seems to be turning out to be a big year for you. In addition to False Claims, you have a couple of other projects that are on the go. Yes. You want to tell me about a couple of those?
Sure. In October, we're putting up. When I say we, I mean Rob Sapienza, Brian Kling of Sapling Productions are producing, in association with a man named Larry Silverberg, a musical comedy of mine titled Something for the Boys, spelled B-U-O-Y-S. It's a show that makes fun of nautical musicals, and it's going up in October at the George Ignatieff Theater, and yeah.
Well, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I know. 2 shows in 1 year.
How let's just take a second and talk about where
wait till show... we go up before we applaud.
No, let's take a second and talk about this musical, this making fun of nautical musicals. Where did that come from? Aside from making fun of nautical musicals,
I came this one came out of, I wrote a song once, which is the opening number of the show. And basically from that stemmed the whole show. And I'll just give you the title. It's called Seamen. And it's a bunch of horny sailors who sing about the women ashore. And I thought, where can we go with this idea? But it's, it has I like to think, a decent message about, it's all about love, physical love versus, true emotion and all that. So let's not paint me to be some sort of horny person. Or
no, but I mean, there is some of the great theater, musical theater teams have written along. I was thinking South Pacific as soon as you started talking about that open number. I was like, oh, okay, so it's like the sailors in South Pacific.
Yeah,
but a little more
raunchier, because you can do it now.
You can do that now.
It's more in the vein of Cole. It's totally an homage to Cole Porter.
Okay.
I'm
hearing a lot of Cole Porter.
I like
Cole
Porter.
I mean, there's a lot to like about Cole Porter, but
yes.
Were you exposed to Cole Porter very early, or
no? Grade 10, when I did Anything Goes at the Grand in London, I was rehearsal pianist for that, and that's when I not only thought, "Wow, I like Cole Porter," but "Wow, I want to try to be like Cole Porter."
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not going to ever come close to him, partly because my musical talents are so limited, but I'm okay with it. I do a certain thing, and, not a lot of people do. Everyone who does it is dead now. So if you want to see it, you're going to have to come in October to the show. The Gershwins have been dead for like 40 years, and they get a new show every 10 years on Broadway.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But so this is an example of, you've never heard it before, but it sounds like it, what was I saying?
Cole Porter.
Cole Porter. Yeah. Most of the music I write is in the vein of Cole Porter. But again, ever since reading A Funny Thing Happened All the Way to Four, my interests have lied mainly in words and text, And I mean, I've always had an interest in comedy. Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, and all those guys. And now I'm finally it's funny though, because in October when we do the musical, I'm going to be saying, oh my God, all these instruments, all this money, and now when we do the play, it's like, oh, no instruments, no money. But then you walk into the theater and you go, where are the instruments? When you have one, you want the other. When you want the other, you have this,
Taking on it sounds like you're well versed in the tropes of this period that False Claims is set in.
It's a kind word for it.
Was working in this period? Did you immediately want this, or did you know like?
Well, and I wouldn't even consider it working in this. Yes, in this period, in this case, it's 1954, and in the musical, it's 1934. For some reason, I have four is a lot. But at the same time, the humor is it's more me, you know what I mean? And I'm saying things you couldn't have said back then, and nor would anyone have, because I didn't exist back then, and they, and the only reason I am the way I am now is because of reading what was back then, and had I been back then, I would have been, writing like Gilbert and Sullivan or something. So yes, is the period, but at the same time, it's not the period. And I like to think, all these shows are built on, philosophical points at the risk of sounding, boring.
Thanks, Blair.
And that never goes out of style. People were as corrupt back then as they are now, and stupid and horny and all sorts of things.
They just had nice suits over top of all of those things.
Exactly. You see, they still have nice suits though.
So the show opens on August 2nd.
Yes.
And at the Alumni Theater. Have you been in that space? Have you got to work on that space before?
Never.
No?
I live 2 blocks away from it.
So have you walked by it? Have you walked by it, sort of like looked in the windows, being like, I'm going to be there soon?
Yes, it has a very nice exterior.
I mean, it sounds like it's the right space for the show. Emily, you've worked there before.
Yeah, I've done a few things. There's not a lot of traditional theater spaces that are affordable.
Mm-hmm.
So for its price, it cannot be beat.
Yeah.
In a magical world where we could do, Hart House or the Elgin or something, maybe that would be even more fitting, but you're looking at 10 times the cost.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the big things about self-producing in this city is cost. And,
yes.
And although there's some storefront spaces, you can't put a big show on those. No. And a show that needs space, you can't really put on those. So,
I mean, this is a show, Rob, that has a cast of 8.
Mm-hmm.
Not 56.
Not 56, not close to that, but that's a pretty big cast for an indie show.
And that's actually as indie shows go, that's pretty huge.
It's pretty huge. And that's what I thought initially when we looked at the 38-minute version. I said, this is unproducible. It's like a one act with 8 actors.
7 at the time.
And it's 1954.
Yeah.
So you have all the period attached to that. So you couldn't. It's quite an ambitious show from all of that for an indie, a brave indie company to take on and say, we're going to do it. And it is set on a Tuesday. And in 1954, in June, and in Toronto, it's a far set in Toronto, kind of a Toronto that maybe never quite existed. But it's quite an ambitious undertaking.
So what do you? I'll ask each of you, and hopefully you each have different answers. What are you most looking forward to about this show going up?
I'll be curious to know what it looks like. If it works or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If the jokes land, if the situations are funny. Just what I've been slaving away for 2 years to see if it works. That's what I'm interested in.
Blair?
Well, what I'm most looking forward to and hoping for is for the audience to have the sheer delight that I experienced when I first read the play. And that is what I would like to hope happens. And I don't see, we have a great cast. And at a play that is really worth igniting, and I don't see why we can't get there, but that's what I hope for.
Emily, is there anything you're looking forward to?
Getting to design a show that I'm not putting my own money into.
That's fair.
Basically, yeah. I've done quite a few shows that are similar, and the cast size and the period stuff doesn't scare me away because that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years. But it is really nice to have the producing work without being like, am I going to be able to pay my rent in September?
Yeah.
So it's nice. It doesn't have the horrible stress behind it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I want to thank you all for coming in and having this conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing the show. This has been a Homebody Productions production.